Welcome in on a Tuesday, February 15th, 3304 daily. Bit of a light crew today. Dan Steinbach, Ryan Wilkes, and our producer's chair. We're joined by Caleb Wetzel. Julian Ferdman may be joining us here in a little bit. Hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. We had a little bit of a long break there. No show last Friday or on Monday yesterday. But we are back. We have shows the rest of the week, so 4 straight shows to get into next weekend. So we're going to look back to the weekend that was, what we were not able to cover from Friday through Monday. And obviously, had a pretty big football game this weekend, had the Super Bowl. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. We're going to do that at about the top of the hour at 2 o'clock. But, we're Virginia Tech students, 3304. We cover Virginia Tech sports. There's no other way, I think, to start the day off than by talking about just the absolute role that Tech Athletics is on right now. Obviously, we can talk about the men's basketball team that is on just a tear. They have the end of their homestand coming up on Saturday. Had a big win in the rivalry last night. They are off to, they're on a really hot stretch. And then obviously we also have the women's team, which is just, they're continuing their stretch run. They pick up 2 ranked wins. They finally get back in the top 25 where they belong. I just saw, right before we started, we didn't talk about this in pre-show, but they are currently moving up in bracketology. Cream of ESPN has them at the 5 line. So they're inching. They're really, really close to hosting a weekend in that first round. And then, wrestling picked up a big win last Friday. I don't know how much we're going to be able to talk about them other than the fact that they're, continuing their great season down the stretch. And then lastly, women's softball. They have started, and they look just about as good as we expected them to. They start off 5-0 in their tournament last weekend. So let's start with the men's team. I think that we can talk a little bit about last night. Let's start with the Syracuse game, though. A game that we were not able to talk about yesterday because we weren't on. A game that took place on Saturday in Castle. And look, I think that was a game that I was a little worried that they might drop, only just because it was the vibe I was catching. But they came out and they played a really strong game. Syracuse was missing their center, so a little bit more ability to get inside against that zone. I mean, hey, look, we were talking about this. I want to say on Thursday. How is Syracuse? How is that game against Syracuse gonna look? And I brought up the Georgia Tech win and the zone that they played, and how a guy like Justin Mutz would be able to play a similar role that he did against Georgia Tech, being a guy that can facilitate throughout the game. And what does he do? He goes out and he drops the second ever triple double in Tech history, drops 11 assists to 1 turnover. Remember that game where he had 8 turnovers? Cuts it down all the way, 11-1 ratio, just great play. Electric atmosphere. Kevin Luma with another 20-point game. And look, they didn't shoot, their best from 3 on the season. Only 8 of 27. But all in all, the game plan was the right. It was the right way to attack Cuse offensively, and defensively. They limited them. Buddy Boeheim got his, but outside of him, not too much happening from Syracuse. So, really good game plan. Guys, looking back towards Saturday, what did you take away from that Syracuse win?
I just thought, like you said, Dan, 8 to 27 from 3. I think it's a big positive that Virginia Tech was able to come out on top, not shooting the 3 well. Because usually the tail of the tape is, if you're not hitting the 3 against Syracuse, you're not going to win. And that just wasn't the case Saturday, because Virginia Tech was able to get it inside, uh, get to that high post where Mutz was just primed to do what he did, and that was get that triple double, because he had the option of basically take a little floater, dribble one time, pass it to Aluma, wide open layup. I mean, it was just slicing up that zone, and Virginia Tech shot sub 40%, but just defensive intensity combined with a good offensive game plan was able to give them the win. And I think the big turning point, and you guys probably saw it too, some of the energy was getting taken from Virginia Tech, and it was starting to feel, like you said, Dan, like it was just that vibe that Virginia Tech was gonna, you know, come out hot, but then eventually drop this game. And that Justin Mutz lob from Hunter Couture really took all the energy from Syracuse that they were gaining and took it right back. And from that point on, Virginia Tech didn't give up the lead. They're able to distance themselves towards the end of the game. So that was a big turning point. And Justin Mutz just continues to do what he's done all season. We saw it against Syracuse where he's just the hype man. He's doing what he's doing. He's all over the floor, and it was just an awesome game from him, and a lot of help from Keve Aluma as well, and a pretty complete performance both offensively and defensively from the Hokies.
Yeah, Muzz has just been the great glue guy that every team wants to have. I mean, the fact that he had 11 assists and only 1 turnover against that Syracuse zone that usually is great at turning teams over. I mean, he's been playing unbelievably, just kind of holding the team together. And the big thing, like you guys said, is the defense looked really good. They had 5 blocks, 6 steals, turned over Syracuse 11 times, and didn't foul much, only 9 fouls on the game. And also a big key was just the offense spreading the ball around and not turning the ball over. Only turning the ball over 4 times after a couple of games where they were turning the ball over double digits consistently. I mean, it was great that they took care of the ball and assisted on 20 of their 23 shots, an unbelievable statistic right there. So I just thought it was a great win to really propel them down the stretch and lead them to big wins like they had yesterday.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to point out from the Syracuse game, and I think this is a good time to transition into yesterday's just massive win. Continuing the streak, they're on the bubble now. They are in Joe Lunardi's bubble. They're in the next 4 out. So basically, they have a fighting shot right now. They're in a really crowded field to get those last spots. Getting to the line has been something that we talk about. Hey, what's this team? What was one of this team's limitations? They don't attack the basket. They don't drive the basketball. They don't get a lot of free throws. Now, they don't give up a lot of free throws, too. And, when I brought up my whole Oregon State comp, I said, yeah, Oregon State shot a lot more free throws, but Tech lets up less free throws. So it kind of was just a different way they play the game. Now, they're doing something where they're not letting up that many free throws, but they're getting to the line a lot more during this winning stretch. And that is, it's great to see. It's very good for building confidence in this team because, again, getting to the line, getting other people in foul trouble, that's how you win. That's how you win these big games late in the season into the postseason. So, seeing them go 17 of 21 in both games. They shot 21 free throws against Syracuse. They shot 21 against UVA. Even if you take into account the fact that they got fouled at the end of those games because they were up and they were trying to play the free throw game, they were still getting a lot of shots at the line early. They were still driving. They were still getting guys in foul trouble. So that was really good to see. All right, let's talk about last night's win. I just, going into halftime, I felt confident that this team was going to be able to do something because you saw so many instances of, there were 5 or 6 times where they shot the ball. It was a clean look, and it just goes all the way around the rim, and then it pops out. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, those are going to fall. They have to. And then outside of that, they just had to make a halftime adjustment because Jane Gardner was the only guy on offense for the Cavs that was doing anything. He was really just being big and physical. He was dominating the glass. He almost had a double-double in the first half. He had, I think he had 4 or more rebounds to get him to 12 on the game within 2 minutes of the second half. So he was doing everything inside for them. But then Mutz and Aluma and just the team defense as a whole, they were able to limit what he was doing in the second half. I think he only had 2 points in the entire last 20 minutes. So the adjustment made on him was so great, and then limiting all of their other players offensively. Kihei Clark just did not have a good game at all last night. The crowd was definitely in his head. So seeing them on defense being able to adjust out of halftime and then just say, hey, we're confident in our offense, we're confident in our game plan, these shots are going to fall. And then they did. And, I mean, again, Hunter Couture and Naheem Aline only going a combined 2 of 8 from 3. That's not something that this team expects to happen every night. They want to see some better production from that, but outside of that, Keve Aluma was just a monster. He was really, really good, did a great job of getting inside. There was a lot of really good interior passing. Once again, just another theme of this team. Justin Mutz with another 5 assists, leading the team again. Honestly, they keep saying he's their second best passer behind Storm Murphy or Sean Padula. I think he might be the best passer on the team. He's got that Draymond Green, just playmaker ability that it becomes really hard to defend when you've got a guy of his size and his ability, being able to pass the ball from the positions that he's at. That really makes it tough on a defense, and it really opens up this offense. So, let's just talk about last night's game. Really great crowd. The end of the homestand on Saturday. What did you guys take away from the win last night?
The crowd, just to start off, was I, it was unbelievable, and it was looking a little sparse to begin with for a sellout at least, but it definitely filled out near probably the under 16 timeout. It was getting pretty full. But yeah, Dan, like you said, Jaden Gardner was pretty unstoppable in the first half. His mid-range game is one of the best in the country from a big that I've seen. It's really smooth. He's got a really nice shot, and he's big and physical. And he was kind of bullying Virginia Tech in the first half, both from the mid range and inside. And the adjustment that was made, it looked like they were bringing a guy help side over to help on Gardner, and he tried to spin baseline similar to what he did in the first half. And I think he got a couple travels called. He dribbled the ball out of bounds once, and he was frustrated in the second half. So it was a good adjustment that was made by Virginia Tech. But Kihei Clark from the very start, airball to floater, and the student section did not let him hear the end of that. And he was obviously rattled. At one point, he started. He was bringing the ball up for a certain amount of time, and then he started giving it to Reese Beekman to bring the ball up. And I don't know if that was a game plan thing or if he was rattled or what, but definitely not a game Kihei Clark wants to look back on. I believe he was 1 for 9 from the field, and that one shot came on a pretty uncontested pull-up jumper near the end of the game. So obviously not the game you want if you're a guy like Kihei Clark, but Virginia 0 of 9 from 3. You're not going to win many basketball games if you don't make a 3. And they were not able to get anything going from behind the arc. Their inside game was decent. Cafaro had an okay game. He was the guy that really killed Virginia Tech last time. If you guys remember, he'd had arguably the game of his career against Virginia Tech, and he was kind of the difference in Charlottesville in that 54-52 game just a couple weeks ago. But Aluma has had his way with Virginia, and he continued to have his way last night. Naheem Aline, I think, had 11, pretty decent showing from him. But again, 2 of 8 from 3 between Aline and Couture, and you still win the basketball game. That's for a team that's been known in certain games to make it or break it from 3. For them to figure out how to win games without the 3 going down, I think is a really positive thing as it goes down the stretch here in the season. And the homestand Saturday might be just as crazy and it might be just as loud. It could be even louder and maybe even more packed. It is a Saturday as opposed to a Monday, and you got a blue blood coming in. So that'll be a really interesting game. UNC solidly in the tournament, I think. So, or pretty solidly in the tournament. They're kind of, on that like 9-10 seed line. But Virginia Tech has a huge opportunity to close out this homestand and go 2 games above 500 when you're talking about maybe 2-3 weeks ago they're 2-7. So you really be talking about one of the hottest teams in the country coming out of this homestand, and it's just you got to keep the same momentum going on the road. It's obviously the crowd makes a huge difference and propels this team forward big time. So you just got to keep that same momentum rolling. And honestly, I think Virginia Tech needs to win out in order to be firmly in the tournament. So I think it's just got to be that same momentum, that same mindset going forward. And I think you got to close out the homestand with a win on Saturday.
Yeah, as you said, Ryan, I mean, Saturday is going to be huge. UNC currently sitting in the tournament somewhat comfortably at that first 4-bye spot this morning on Lenardi posted out. So that would be a huge win to follow up with this great win from yesterday. I mean, it was just a great team win as they've been having lately. And I mean, they got to the line 21 times, made 17 free throws. That's a great recipe for success, especially when you're not shooting the 3-ball well, as they were 5 for 20, as you guys talked about. So it's the little things like that, switching up the game plan to shut down guys like Gardner when he's going off. So that goes back to Mike Young coaching great, making adjustments in timeouts, and the players following through with it. So that's a win that I think could continue the momentum. And Saturday is going to be tough against UNC, especially, I mean, didn't go well last time at all, and they have a lot of that size that Virginia Tech struggles with. But if they play like they did against Gardner in that second half, where they shut him down after letting him get his way most of the game against guys like Baycott and UNC's other big guys, then, I mean, there's no reason to believe they can't win this game and continue their momentum.
Yeah, when we talked about it, when we talked about it after the Florida State game, they were 3-7. We said, hey, last 10 games, what does the last 10 games look like? Virginia was probably one of the 3 hardest games left on the schedule, and you look at UNC and you look at Miami, as two other potential ones, even though Miami has not kept the early season momentum that they had. They're playing really great. They're really playing really, really good basketball right now. Yeah, just taking a look again, like you said, Caleb, they are on Lenardi's last 4 bye. North Carolina is. They're currently sitting at a 10 seed. Tech in that next 4 out. So they are in that group of 8 teams trying to get into those last 4 spots for the tourney. One thing that I thought was interesting from last night, just looking at the box score, and you didn't really feel the impact, but when this guy's in the game, he makes a bucket or two, and it can really swing momentum. Darius Maddox didn't really shoot well last night. He shot 1 of 5, 1 of 3 from 3. So only 3 points on the night. That is his first performance only making 1 basket since the last time they played North Carolina, and that was back when he wasn't playing more than 10 minutes a game. Like, he was playing single-digit minutes a night. Now, him and the rest of the bench, they're getting an expanded role. They're seeing 15 to 20, even more minutes throughout the game. So in 17 minutes of action last night, only scoring 1 basket. That's uncharacteristic of him. So I thought that was just something surprising. And again, Ryan, you pointed out, them shooting so poorly from 3, getting only 2 of 8 from Couture, Aline, throwing Maddox, only making 1 basket, and then still coming out with a 9-point win. That's a really good sign. It means that Mutz is playing his role extraordinarily well. He's being a facilitator. Aluma is just playing. At this point, man, I don't think that there's any doubt that Keve Aluma should be first-team All-ACC this season. The stretch that he is on right now, and even when they were losing, he was still putting up some numbers. I think it was just the rest of the team just wasn't, pulling some weight. I think Keve Aluma is firmly a first-team All-ACCer. I think he got a couple votes for Player of the Year in the preseason, if memory serves me correctly. I don't know if he's playing that well, but he is definitely deserving of one of those spots. He's been having a great stretch, especially during the win streak. All right, let's shift gears here a little bit. Let's go over to the women's side, because they just wrapped up a homestand of their own 4 games in a row in Castle. Won all 4, so a sweep. We were not able to talk about the results of Thursday night's game on Friday because we were off, and then they played again on Sunday and pulled off another win. That's 2 ranked wins. 2 ranked wins over that 4-day stretch. Just taking Georgia Tech basically like behind the woodshed for most of the game. They kind of got a little dicey there in the 4th quarter. Georgia Tech was able to come back a little bit. But, I mean, I don't know what the national media is paying attention to. This is a top 15 team in the net rankings. This is a team that has done really well in conference. They have the star talent. I have no idea why it took them so long to get back into being ranked. Maybe it's just because the way their schedule is played out, some of their tougher competition, and then the tougher competition they're playing now. There was a little bit of a lull there in the middle where they were playing some weaker teams, beating up a little bit on the weaker teams in the conference. So maybe they weren't that impressed with it. But, let's just start off with the Georgia Tech game. Georgia Moore played great. Georgia Moore, 21 points. It was kind of uncharacteristic for the night, not seeing Elizabeth Kitley being the leading scorer, but Georgia Moore has that gear. 5 of 6 from 3. She was fantastic from 3. She was just named ACC Co-Player of the Week. Kitley shooting 9 of 20 for 18, and then Asia Shepard putting up another 12 points. Was that the game that she became the ACC's all-time leading 3-point scorer, or was it against North Carolina? Does anyone have that?
That was against North Carolina on Sunday that she became the leading scorer, or leading 3-point scorer in ACC history.
All right, well, there you have it. So, just again, this team is playing really good basketball. They have 4 games left in the regular season. They are at Syracuse on Thursday and then at Louisville on Sunday. So, big game there. And then they wrap up the season 2 games at home the next Thursday and the next Sunday against Miami and then North Carolina State. So, really, I think at this point, it just comes down to, okay, you look at this last stretch of 4 games. Right now, they're currently on the 5 line. And you just have to take one more jump in order to host a first round in the NCAA tournament. And I think the question simply comes down to, do you guys think they can do that? I was having a conversation with someone, and it basically came down to, hey, do well in the ACC tournament, which at this point I feel like they're going to do. They are in the top 4 in the conference, so they will be getting that double bye if they hold on, of course. But at this point, it looks like they're solidly in there. And then you win a game or two, you get to, well, if you win one game, you're in the semifinals. So then you're in that final four. And then if you knock off one of those giants you've got left on your schedule, you've got Louisville on the road, you've got NC State at home. You go 3-1 down the stretch, you get into that final four in the tournament. It feels like, and with the strength of the conference overall, it feels like Virginia Tech has a really good chance to be hosting the first round of a women's tournament here.
Yeah, it certainly does. And you've got, I mean, two golden opportunities here at the end of the season. I know going to Louisville is not going to be an easy task, but you got NC State coming in, and I'm sure that's going to be a rowdy atmosphere in Castle. Last game of the season. Um, and losing to this team by only 6 points in a low scoring kind of defensive battle a couple weeks ago, a game in which Tech had to fight back. They were down double digits for most of the game. They really had to fight back in that fourth quarter, but they have two golden opportunities here, which I think even if you take one or two of these games, you could make a serious case for Virginia Tech as a 4 seed in the tournament. But yeah, they've been playing really, really good basketball. They're a very resilient team. It started out really poorly against North Carolina, 21-9 first quarter, immediately responded with a 22-7 second quarter, and then kind of just, kept it rolling for the rest of the game. So they're a team that, will respond to any punches thrown at them, and they really have done that. They responded to that Georgia Tech run at the end of the game. Georgia Tech, I think, made a single digits game for a game that was, predominantly all Virginia Tech. And they responded really well. So I think 23 is a bit low. I think they're more of a top 20 team. I think, number 20 might be more fair. But again, stuff happens in the polls where maybe that's the only spot they could slide them into, given the performance of some other teams during the week. So regardless, it's good to see this team finally getting some respect. I think they would have been ranked a little bit earlier had they beat a team like Notre Dame. That would have given them 3 ranked wins in the matter of, a couple weeks. So I think that might have been the one thing holding them back. But I think they've got some golden opportunities here down the stretch. And you got Syracuse first on Thursday, and then you go to Louisville on Sunday. So a couple big opportunities coming up for the Hokies.
Caleb, you were covering the Tech win over North Carolina, 430-304. Why don't you talk a little bit about that game, what you saw? And man, I just pulled up the net rankings just to get a quick update for that. Virginia Tech is still at 13. Man, if you thought the net rankings on the computers loved the men's team, man, the net rankings love North Carolina's women's team. North Carolina's women's team is barely hanging on in the top 25, but they're currently 5th in the net. So Virginia Tech just knocked down a top 5 team in the net rankings. That to me tells me, yeah, you could steal one of those games from the top 2 teams in the conference, down the stretch here. All right, Caleb, what did you see on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, on Sunday, the energy in Castle was electric, just like it was in the men's game. I mean, it was loud and everyone was into that game that was in the stands. I mean, you could tell the team was really feeding off of it, and they realized how big of a game that was. I mean, UNC, another ranked team, and Virginia Tech, actually, this is their first time winning back-to-back, their women's team's first time winning back-to-back games against ranked teams in history. So it's a big deal for the team. And like you said, I mean, North Carolina at that number 5 spot in the net rankings, that's crazy. So it was a huge win. Great moment for Aisha Shepherd when she broke that record. I mean, it was a wonderful moment. She's been such a big staple of this program for the last 5 years. So that was huge. And I mean, just the in-game adjustments that Virginia Tech made against UNC. I mean, that first quarter was pretty brutal. Tech couldn't make a shot, and UNC was scoring pretty easily when they went up 21-9. But that second quarter, I mean, the defense really locked in and shut North Carolina down. I mean, they held some scores like Anya Poole almost had a double-double in the first game, and she had 2 points and 3 rebounds this game. And other scorers like Hodgson, she only had 10 points and she had 19 last game. So the defense really did a great job of making adjustments. And I mean, it was a hard-fought battle. There was people diving all over the floor, and I mean, Georgia Moore talked in the post game. She got asked about how gritty they are and how they fight for every ball and get into these scrums. And she was like, we just all fight for each other. We want these wins. We want these games so bad. So I thought it was a great win. I mean, anytime you can beat a team that you lost 25 to earlier in the season, that's huge. So great win, and I mean, we'll look to see if they continue down the stretch to stay hot. I mean, these are a big 4 games. You got to win at Syracuse here, but I mean, you knock off one of these top teams, NC State or Louisville, they should get the recognition they deserve, as we've been talking about. I do still think they're underranked, but hopefully they'll get that recognition soon.
I think it would just be great to see them host a full weekend. I mean, we've seen the soccer teams host a couple NCAA tournament games. I mean, that's just how they do it. They do it at campuses. But hosting a whole weekend, hosting multiple teams, before you move on to the second weekend of the tournament in March, I mean, that would be great to see. I honestly feel like the atmosphere would be brought. I would be very excited to see something like that happen. And honestly, I would love to see other sports incorporate that. We've talked about whether you expand the college football playoff, and I think they do it to some degree with the men's side, where it's you go to universities sponsor the weekend, but it's not the home team. Like the number 1 seed for that weekend, it's a top 4 seed in the region. They host that weekend, and it's played on their home court. I would love to see that. And of course, like you talk about the college football playoff, you expand it, you have some earlier games being played on campus. I think that would just make for an even more incredible atmosphere, and it would really help, fans of those really, really good teams, help them cut down on travel costs, all that stuff. I really feel like there would be no negative there. So, see how it plays out. But, at this point, I would say that I am confident that they will be hosting, being a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And if they're not, I think that they'll get robbed. That honestly is just a feeling of mine right now. All right, we're coming up on the break, so we did want to mention wrestling. Another ranked win over North Carolina. They won 23-11. I know our guy Ethan Owens, who's usually on Fridays, he's a big wrestling guy, so he might have something more for us there. They do play Virginia. They do meet up with Virginia in Charlottesville on Friday, and then they make up that NC State meet that got moved. They make that up on Sunday in Raleigh. So that would be that'll certainly have a lot of drama. But I mean, do you guys have any quick comments on the wrestling team as they get closer to the end of their season? Ooh, the NCAA championships are in Detroit? Oh, hold up. I did not know that. Oh, that just got me really excited. Oh, baby, at LCA? Are you kidding me? Oh, man, that's good. That is good stuff to hear live.
Yeah, I think it's good that they got that win over North Carolina. I know they'd struggled a couple of times against UNC, and it's a big stretch coming up, going to your rival and then going to NC State, which is a huge match that was supposed to happen a little while ago, but got postponed. So big stretch coming up for the Hokies, and just an overall great home stretch for Virginia Tech sports. Just really, really impressive. Not a single loss thus far, so hoping to keep it going.
The problem with that being the problem with the NCAA championships for wrestling is that they're just after spring break. They're just the weekend. They're just the week after that. But I figure, hey, you know what? I could go cover it for 3304. You know, little home cooking, not have to pay for a hotel or whatever. Oh, dude, that is so sweet right there. All right, let's talk about the softball team a little bit too, because they go into their tournament. They start off 5-0. We've talked about them, a lot on this program. Getting ready for the season to happen. I am square in the opinion that they are the closest team to winning a national championship, to being the first team national champion in Virginia Tech history. And they went out there and they proved it. But I'm impressed with how they proved it, because I'm going to claim ignorance here. I was not aware of the recruiting that they have done, because I keep bringing up Keely Rochard. And look, at the end of the day, there's a really good chance that come NCAA tournament time, Keely Rochard is the one that's going to be pitching every inning. But Emma Lemley, she's a freshman. She came out. She went 2-0 in her 2 starts, struck out a lot, walked a little bit of people, but had, I believe, the lowest ERA out of the weekend, including between her and Rochard. They were really the two to play in those 5 games, and they pitched really well. Tech's 5-0. I'm a little upset with how the schedule goes, because I went through it. They're playing like 15 or more games before they come back to Blacksburg, which is just, it's sad, because you want to see them as soon as possible. Obviously, it's February. It's not exactly the most warm weather here, but overall, no, really impressed with the hot start that they're on, and seeing someone being able to, enter into the fold and be someone that hopefully down the line, you can rely on to relieve Richard a little bit in terms of starting and picking up some innings. That's really great to see. And the offense was there, and they were situational as always. That's just how they were last season, and it really starts with the pitching of this team, and then the offense. They pick it up and they just win. they would do a lot of winning, and they are currently number 8 in the country. So obviously hot start there. Before we get into the break, do you guys have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean they look great in every aspect. What they were missing last year was that second pitcher, because I mean Keely was pitching every game and she was doing great, but it was teams were able to prepare for that a little better. Now with that 1-2 punch of Lemley and Richard, I fear for other teams and their hitters, because with how Richard made them look, if you got 2 pitchers that can make hitters question everything at the plate and have struggle putting the ball in play, then everything's going to click. I mean, the batting is going to come together. A bright spot, I mean, is that some of your best hitters didn't have the greatest first few games. I mean, Kelsey Brown, team leader in average last year, is just 1 for her first 12. So, these great players are going to bounce back, and the offense is going to look even better here soon. So a lot of promise. It's going to be an exciting season.
All right, let's get into the break here, top of the hour, 2 o'clock. And on the other side of it, hey, we had a pretty big football game on Sunday, so we'll talk about that. You're listening to 3304 Daily.
Big Monday is back in Blacksburg as the Virginia Cavaliers travel to Castle Coliseum for Commonwealth Clash 2.0 to face off against the Virginia Tech Hokies. And now look how loud it is here in Blacksburg. Just take a minute to take it all in here on 3304 Sports. Murphy over now to Aluma on the right wing. Hands it off to Naheem Aline, who pump fakes now back out to the logo. Over to Keve Aluma with 3 seconds to shoot. He puts it up from the baseline for 2 and sinks it. Nothing but net for Keve Aluma, and the Hokies strike first here in Blacksburg. It's 2-0 Virginia Tech. Top of the key, Aluma nearly had it stolen away. Now over to Mutz, who hands it off to Darius Maddox, right baseline. 3, swish! Hokies have a lead. It's a 1-point advantage for Virginia Tech. It's a cutting Maddox, left wing. Over now up top to Keve Aluma. Thought about a 3. He's not going to take it. Will drive down low with 7 seconds to shoot. 22 Maroon puts it up for 2 and gets it to go. Hokies once again retake the lead back and forth here in Blacksburg early on. It's 9-8 Virginia Tech. 15 seconds to shoot. Now over to Poindexter. Working on Sean Padula. Pulls it back out with 8 seconds to shoot. Hokies defense is swarming tonight. Armand Franklin drives in low. Pulls up from the free throw line and gets a runner to go. Reese Beekman, top of the key, gets a screen from Gardner. Now over to the East Carolina transfer from the right block. Pulls up for 2, nothing but nylon. Murphy now on the right wing, tries an open 3. That's money from downtown. Hokies are within 2, 18-16 Virginia with 6:55 to play. Padula hands it over to Justin Mutz. Now back up top to David Gassan, who swings it over to Darius Maddox on the right wing. Maddox tries to get something going. Over now to Hunter Couture straight away. 20 seconds to shoot. Now over to Sean Padula, left wing. Tried to get a screen, won't get it, and we'll pull it back out with 15 seconds to shoot. Over now to Justin Mutz, who gets it over to David Gassan. Hand off Hunter Couture, drives in low. Now a no-look disc to David Gassan, who slams it home for 2. All tied up at 25. Cafaro top of the key with 17 seconds to shoot. Now over to Malachi Poindexter on the right wing, working on Darius Maddox. Over now to Beekman with 12 seconds to shoot. Gardner down low now with 10 seconds to shoot. Pump fakes, puts it up for 2 and rattles one home. Cavaliers once again retake the lead as Jaden Gardner is taking over. He's got 15 already here in Blacksburg, and the Hokies trail by 2 with 40 seconds to play. And Virginia will go into the locker room with a 29-25 lead here in Blacksburg. Now,
Mutz backing down Gardner, lays it up with the right hand, too short, offensive rebound poked up by Mutz, and he lays it off the glass and in. Strong drive by Justin Mutz, and he's got the first bucket of the second half for the Hokies. Gardner fading away, 15-footer, rattled off the rim, fell off the left side, rebound Storm Murphy. Crossing the timeline is Murphy, off the screen from Aluma, dish to the inside, Keve Aluma slams it down with authority, and Blacksburg is dynamite tonight. Is Kihei Clark at Murphy, from the top of the key, gives it off, Beekman left wing. Coming off the Shedrick screen, Beekman with the right hand, stuffs it home. And we are tied in Blacksburg. Beekman once again crossing midcourt on that vaunted VT logo if you're a Wahoo fan. Lob to the inside and the stuff home for Caden Shedrick. Aline, fancy dribbling, 10 seconds on the shot clock on the Carillion Clinic logo. Justin Mutz, baseline drive from the right side. This to Aluma, who soars into the night sky and slams it down. Hokies lead by 6. Tony Bennett wants to talk things over. Timeout, Virginia. 2:16 left to go in the game. Hunter Couture thought about a 3 left wing. Justin Mutz inside now, left block, Keve Aluma. Here's Aluma from 15 feet away. Backing down Shedrick, back to Aluma. Keve fades away from 15 and he rattles it home. Up and over Caden Shedrick. Hokies lead it by 8 as we approach a minute to go in the ball game. Beekman, top of the key, guarded by Keve Aluma, crossing on Keve, lost his dribble momentarily. Beekman a drive, lays it up with the left hand. No, rebound is there. Naheem Aline tipped it to Hunter Couture, and they're gonna run out the clock. Tony Bennett calls off the guard. Clock continues to wind. 3, 2, and 1. Virginia Tech has won 6 straight. And they're starting to make their case for the NCAA tournament. 62-53, the final score from Blacksburg.
Welcome back. You are listening to 3304 Daily. That was just Carter Hill and Giovanni Heater on the call of last night's men's basketball win for 3304. All right, here we go. Last 20 or so minutes. I mean, we got to talk Super Bowl, right? We'll talk. I feel like we'll have to talk a little bit more coming into the week, just because, I mean, football's done. Might as well talk about it. Get everyone else's opinions on it throughout the week. But, I mean, where do you guys really want to start? The Rams won. The Rams were a popular choice to win the Super Bowl dating back over a year to when the Matt Stafford trade happened. And then throughout the season, I mean, they make the trade for Von Miller. They add in Odell Beckham. Beckham gets accustomed to the offense. Now he had to leave early with what ended up being a torn ACL. So we'll see how his free agency plays out. But, I mean, what were your major takeaways really from the game? I mean, that's just kind of where we're going to start. I don't really want to start. I think I want to send it over to Ryan to start here, or I guess Ryan has to go, so I guess we'll send it over to Caleb here for our opening remarks regarding Super Bowl. What is that? 56? Yeah, Super Bowl 56 is. I'm trying to read Roman numerals here, but yeah. So I mean, Caleb, what are your thoughts on the game?
I thought it was a great game. I mean, and it kind of just played out how it was expected to play out. Joe Burrow got sacked a lot. The Rams defense played pretty solid. Besides a few things, I mean, Jalen Ramsey allowed over 100 yards, but that's pretty questionable with the no face mask call on the T. Higgins long touchdown. But yeah, I mean, it was a great game as expected, and that Rams defense really solidified how strong they are. I mean, that Von Miller pickup was huge because, I mean, with just Donald applying the pressure, the Bengals line did pretty good. They were doubling up on him early a lot, but the threat of just Von Miller and Donald ended up being too much and led to a bunch of sacks. Donald had a few big plays at the end, and the offense did enough to secure the win. They weren't the crazy high-powered offense they were all season. Stafford did have a couple blips with those 2 interceptions, but Cooper Kupp, man, I mean, he solidified maybe one of the greatest wide receiver seasons in NFL history with that game, finishing with 2 touchdowns, 92 yards, which it's crazy to say is low for him on the year. So, I mean, and then Odell had a great game too until he was out. I mean, he caught the first touchdown of the game, 52 yards as well. So you just hope he gets better and bounces back for next year. And yeah, I mean, as you said, they looked really good preseason. A lot of people were super high on them. The defense wasn't quite there at the beginning half of the season. They didn't look as strong as everyone expected them to be. They weren't always in the top 5. So for them to really turn it around and make this big playoff run and win the Super Bowl, that's crazy. It's very expected and good for them. Good for LA.
Well, I mean, you say good for LA, but then you look at the ratings, and no one in LA watched the game. I mean, we could talk about it. They don't have a fan base. The game was the 2 largest markets were Cincinnati and Detroit. Detroit has more Rams fans this weekend than Los Angeles does. I mean, I don't know. Ryan, you're back. Welcome back. What did you take away from the Super Bowl?
It was a really good game. I thought the fact that I believe it was a Stafford interception, where the Bengals got the ball in plus territory and they were only able to get a field goal out of it. Obviously, that hurts with the score, but I also think it hurts with the momentum, because holding them to a field goal was a massive win for that defense, being that they were put in that position. And I think that 4th and 1 call was really, really questionable. I don't think enough people are talking about that with how dominant this front seven is for the Rams. Why are you going to put Joe Burrow in the shotgun when you only need a half a yard? I think you either hand the ball to Mixon or just try and get it right up the middle. I mean, because Mixon had a pretty decent game. I mean, it wasn't exceptional by any means, but he'd gotten loose a couple times. And I get wanting to put the ball in Joe Burrow's hand, and I think Chase is wide open down the sideline. Had he had one more second to throw that football, I think he would have found him. Um, but overall, I think you're only trying to get a field goal, or you're at the very least trying to get a field goal. And I don't think that was the right play call in that situation. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think putting your quarterback in the shotgun when you're past midfield, only needing a field goal, and your offensive line is what your offensive line is at this point. And that defensive line had really gotten to Joe Burrow in that second half. And I think, you know, not trusting Joe Mixon to get 1 yard there, I think was the wrong decision. But overall, it was a tough end for the Cinderella run. And I think, you know, Jalen Ramsey, I think you can make a little. I'm not fully sold on the best corner in the league thing. I'm really not. Um, I think some of his. I definitely think the T Higgins thing was, pretty bad miscall. But Jamar Chase was having his way for most of the game. And he would have had his way. I think had Burrow been able to get rid of that ball, I think Jamar Chase was walking into the end zone. So I think, you know, Jalen Ramsey is without a doubt one of the best corners. I don't know who I would say is the best corner, but I mean he's beatable. Jamar Chase proved that multiple times. Um, but yeah, Cooper Cup can't be more happy for that guy. I think Odell Beckham Jr. has become a lot more likable since coming to LA, which is kind of weird because it's usually the other way around when athletes come to LA. And same with Matthew Stafford. But Odell Beckham continues to be probably the most misunderstood player in the National Football League, because now you get his frustrations. Now you get why, maybe he had problems in New York, in Cleveland. I mean, because this guy's a very talented football player. And I think the overrated stuff is kind of getting old. Like, I don't think he's an overrated football player. I think he's a very talented wide receiver. And I think obviously the defensive game plan for Cincinnati really was simplified when he was taken out of the football game. So I don't think his impact can go understated. It was nice to see him get a ring. And, overall, it's just a good Super Bowl, good halftime show. Commercials were subpar, in my opinion. I think there was a couple good ones, but overall, they were fine. I thought one more thing, The Rock was pretty awesome. I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion, but I thought he's pretty awesome, teeing up the game there. But overall, it was good Super Bowl. Don't have much complaints about it.
Interesting hearing you talk about commercials and all that. And I think as we move on and we talk a little bit more about the game, and we'll have less to focus on with on the field stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about the off the field stuff. We'll bring up the halftime show. We'll bring up all that. No, you're absolutely right about Odell Beckham. He's still wildly talented. Problem is, I mean, you think about it for his entire career, Eli, Daniel Jones, Baker, whoever the Browns have when Baker's hurt, he hasn't been playing with above average quarterbacks. He's been playing with not good ones. He's been playing with bad quarterbacks, below average quarterbacks, in offenses that aren't tailored to his skill set. Like, he goes to the Browns and we think, oh, they have a really good receiver core. They don't use it. They don't use the receivers that they have that much. It's a run-first team. So them getting these high-priced receivers is not in their best interest. It's not in the best interest of the player, and that leads to drama. Then he goes to LA, and Stafford and McVay, it is a pass-first offense. They want to find Cooper Kupp. They then work him into the system, being that second guy that defenses now have to pay attention to, rather than the rotating, machine that was Van Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson for the 3 minutes he was there. And Robert Woods was in that role before he got hurt. So Odell Beckham finding a really good fit there, it helps him, and then obviously the injury hurts him. So seeing how him basically missing a lot of next season potentially affects his free agency. Like, he's not going to be able to show up to OTAs. I doubt he starts the season unless he has a really, really good recovery. Ryan, I want to go back to your point about the end of the game. The Bengals, they just have to get a field goal. You know, McPherson's been great in the playoffs. He's been automatic. He's just got to get that much closer. And you're at second down, and you throw the ball deep. Okay, fine. You're at third down. You want to run the football. Why in the world are you running Samaje Perine? Why is Joe Mixon not the one in the game there? It is critical mass. You need a yard. Why is Joe Mixon taking a breather? It's the Super Bowl, man. That I don't understand. So the pass, I don't hate the pass. The thing that led up to the pass, the run, using the wrong back. I think that in there is the problem. But hey, the meme has finally come true. The Bengals did not draft Penei Sewell, and it led to Joe Burrow getting sacked while trying to find Ja'Marr Chase deep downfield. So at the end of the day, yes, the Bengals offensive line, it finally really cost them. Let's be honest here. It should have cost them against the Titans, but their defense this entire postseason has played tremendous football. This defense has risen up. They were probably thought of as an average defense in the regular season, not really that great, but then their acquisitions in the secondary, Mike Hilton, Cheeto Uzie was really, really good this whole year, had an interception in the Super Bowl. And obviously Trey Hendrickson, baller. But he didn't do a whole lot last night. Andrew Whitworth did a really good job, as well as the entire Rams offensive line, of limiting him. I say last night, Sunday. So no, the Bengals defense has done really well, and that's why it makes up for the Bengals offensive line not doing well. They have been awful. They give up a lot of pressures, and that's the thing too. The Rams did what the Titans did. It's just that the Rams offense was actually able to move the ball a little bit. They actually brought Burrow down. The thing with the Chiefs was they pressured Burrow a lot, but they couldn't get him down. And therein lies the difference. When you have a special guy at quarterback, I don't care, who you are. I don't care whether you're defensive end, defensive tackle, whatever. I don't care about your pressure rate. I don't care about that. I care about you getting the guy down. Because when a guy like Burrow, when a guy like Mahomes, when these special quarterbacks that we see, when they can evade the pressure and they can make plays happen, then what does it matter? It doesn't matter to them if there's a guy in their face, they can run around. If you bring him down, that's where the impact actually happens. So, that just was the reason why they were able to win. It came down to the critical play at the end of the game. Hey, just get a yard. Let's go get the guy. And they brought him down. They broke it up. And they win the Super Bowl. that's just... That's what the game came down to. The Bengals offensive line just could not hold up. And the Bengals defense tried as they might. But the Bengals, they just couldn't get that extra step of luck that really helped them with the fact that their offensive line, it's in shambles. It is not good. It is not a good unit. And they're going to need to spend an offseason, similar to how the Chiefs did a year ago when we saw Patrick Mahomes running for his life in the Super Bowl, and they got blown out. They need to have a Kansas City Chiefs level of going into the offseason and trying to fix that offensive line. It's a very similar story. And honestly, I think that you can see them, do a very work very similar tactics. Trade the number 31 overall pick for a really good upgrade at left tackle or something like that. Go into the draft and find really good value players at offensive line in the second round, in the third round. The Chiefs were able to find one of the best guards in the NFL in Trey Smith in the 6th round. That's the kind of stuff the Bengals need to do this offseason in order to just elevate what they have already. They're a really good defensive team. They're really good. Their acquisitions in the secondary were solid. Trey Hendrickson, probably one of the better free agency signings, I don't know, the last 5 years, especially for Cincinnati. That might be their best free agency signing maybe ever. Just increased production from Burrow. Still bring back all your receiving weapons. Joe Mixon's still under contract. Offensively, they're good. Defensively, they're solid. It just comes down to one unit is the one thing that's holding them back from really becoming a great team. And they're young. I'm pretty sure they have a lot of cap space where they can definitely maneuver this. The Bengals are really close to being that one team Ryan, I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling here. I know you want to get something on off your chest, but when we talk about, oh, Joe Burrow is going to be back here, we don't know that. It's very difficult for teams to get to the Super Bowl in the first place, and then if they get there, it's difficult to get back. And especially with the AFC, with that mix of great young quarterback talent and the up and comers, it's going to be hard for Burrow to separate himself. If he can, that's great. But it comes down to team success now. The Bengals right now have a chance. Just fix that one unit, and you have the possibility to be head and shoulders above everyone else for maybe the next year or two, because the Chiefs are going to be dealing with cap issues soon. Same with Buffalo. They got to figure out run game, even though they have good pieces on defense. Just all those teams that you can think of, they're going to have some struggles that the Bengals won't have, and their one struggle can be fixed in one offseason. All right, Ryan, let's throw it over to you.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize a couple of things here. I think going back to your point about Odell, I think LA is definitely a good spot for him. You finally get an above average quarterback that can get you the ball, and we've seen that what can happen there. I mean, he had just as much or more touchdown. I can't remember what the stat was, but I think he had 6 receiving touchdowns in his time in LA, and only 6 touchdowns in his whole time in Cleveland, which was a couple of years. So I think this is definitely the spot for him. But going on to what you said about the Bengals, I think there's a bit of recency bias with the, oh, the Bengals should have drafted Sewell or the Bengals should have drafted Chase conversation, because yes, it would have helped to have a stronger offensive line coming down the wire there. But do I think the Bengals would have been here without Jamar Chase? Definitely not. There's no way in the world. I mean, they just, yeah, Higgins and Boyd are good. I think Higgins has potential to actually be great down the road in his career. It depends how he is developed. But Jamar Chase came in and basically became a very, very good borderline. I wouldn't say he's elite yet, but borderline elite receiver in the NFL in his first year. That's an instant, shot of adrenaline to a team like the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Sewell would have had a big impact on this team, but I don't think the net impact wouldn't have been as big. I don't think you can look at this and say, if they had Sewell instead of Chase, this wouldn't have happened in this game. The Bengals wouldn't have been in this game if they would have drafted Sewell over Chase. Now, down the road, they might have been, but I think it's still the right pick to go with Chase. And yeah, it's definitely something they've got to restructure in the offseason, whether that is using that 31st pick to take an offensive lineman, which I'm not sure that there's going to be much available in terms of offensive line down the road there, because there is a lot. I mean, you're looking at the number 1 pick in the draft possibly being an offensive lineman. So I don't know what it's going to look like at that point, but I do know there could be some gems. I mean, you look at a guy like Creed Humphrey, who's one of the best rookies in the NFL with the Chiefs, a guy that, maybe was drafted a little bit later that turned out to be really good. So I don't know. They might be able to find a diamond in the rough there, but you've got to restructure this, because with a at least okay offensive line, the Bengals win this football game. But, they weren't able to stop that pass rush, and that was expected. Aaron Donald got back there and made a bunch of noise and, did what he was expected to do. And who knows where he goes after this game. I think, it's still up in the air. But besides that, I think this is a tough debate to have, because, yeah, you'd love to say this is true. Joe Burrow was getting sacked in the backfield, just like we all said, if they had a better offensive line, then this would happen. You don't get to that game if Chase is not on the Cincinnati Bengals. So, again, I think they really need to restructure this, but I don't think it's, fair to say that the Bengals made the wrong decision with Chase, because I don't think they did at the end of the day. So, I think, like you said, Dan, it is really hard to get back to the Super Bowl after, being in it a year. We've only seen it a couple times. Kansas City obviously being the outlier there. They've got the talent to make it every year pretty much if they put the right run together. But who knows? With the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals could – I would not be shocked. This is going to sound like a outlandish take, but, I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't make the playoffs next year. I mean, I'm not saying that they won't make the playoffs, but I've seen crazier stuff happen year to year in the NFL. So – do I think they'll make the playoffs? Of course. But would it surprise me with the inconsistencies of the league? No. So who knows what will happen? I know people think he'll be back. I think he'll be back. Maybe not next year. I don't know if he'll make the Super Bowl again next year. I think this is a pretty special run. Not sure what will happen next year, but again, great Super Bowl. Tough end to it, but we'll see what the Bengals do in the offseason to get Joe Burrow some help up front.
And well, Ryan, I mean, that's just a good way to end it, because I want to talk about the fact that they tried a little bit to get this offensive line worked out. The problem was it just didn't land. I mean, they only took they took 3 offensive linemen in this past year's draft. Going back to the year they drafted Joe Burrow, they only took 1 offensive lineman. And then going back another year, Jonah Williams, probably their best offensive lineman by far. I mean, you go back to just this last draft, and let's talk about a team like the Chiefs, who helped build their offensive line, not just by trading away that 31st pick and getting Brown, but going through the draft and finding Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, who are 2 just dynamite young players who are already some of the best in the NFL at their position. The Bengals had those opportunities to take those picks, and obviously this is all just 2020 vision. Why didn't this team draft this player? They could have had this player. This player was available to them, and they didn't take him. The Bengals had the opportunity. The problem is they just failed. So I guess that becomes a worry then in the offseason is, okay, when they take their chances on these offensive linemen, whoever they draft, whoever they trade for, doesn't end up working out. The only thing that we will need to see from them, I think, flat out, is that they need to try. They need to try somehow. We need to see that there is a strong effort being put forth for them to fix up this offensive line. I don't know where they are on odds sites for how they are going to return to the Super Bowl. I know that they are at least behind the Chiefs and Bills. They're probably going to be a really solid contender in the AFC again. Might be atop the AFC North again if the Ravens aren't right up there with them. So yeah, I mean that's what I need to see from the Bengals to get an instilled confidence in them next year, which would be, hey, try to fix the offensive line, get players that are good at football, and that's really what it comes down to. All right, Caleb, I'll give you the last word here before we wrap up in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything you guys said was super out there. Even Ryan saying they might not make the playoffs next year. I mean, you got a team like the Ravens in their division who could bounce back next year and have a really good season. I mean, they had so many injuries problems this year, didn't really have a running back that they could stick with throughout the season. So they could easily lose that division. And then, I mean, a couple teams step up like the Colts and the Chargers in the AFC, and they find themselves out of the playoffs. So it was a really odd year, honestly, for the NFL. A lot of teams in the mix. So I think the Bengals do have that strong core if they can shore up the line like we've been talking about to continue to be a dominant team. And as you said, looking to next season, they're the 4th best odds to win the Super Bowl. So Vegas likes them as well. But, I mean, some of these teams that didn't make it where they wanted to this year, like, I mean, teams who have deep cores like the Cowboys, teams like the Titans who, if they could figure out the Tannehill problem, they could find themselves being top of the AFC, top of the NFC. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot that could happen in the offseason, injuries, trades, whatever. You don't know what will happen, but I do think this Bengals team will stay strong. But if we'll see. It'll be interesting.
I think with the AFC North next season, I think you're going to see the Steelers drop off a lot because of they're going to have to figure out the quarterback situation. They have a solid roster, but that offense is going to be very limited. And I think you're going to see the Browns. I think the Browns are ready to have, I mean, they kind of did it this year. A lot of high expectations. They kind of just came down, not really crashing down to earth because they weren't god-awful, but I think next year just another everything just falls completely out of control. I think Cleveland's ready for a rude awakening. So I think the AFC North next year is firmly between the Ravens and the Bengals. I think what I'm going to do tomorrow, this is the game I wanted to play, was go around the divisions of the NFL and do a little bit of a way too early predictions type thing and see how many teams in each division can make the playoffs. Kind of like an over-under game. So stay tuned for that. We've got 3 more shows coming up this week. Caleb, thank you for joining Ryan and myself today. You were listening to 3304 Daily. Take care, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.